Co, you know that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
I am aware.
And you have had a little bit of personal experience with that yourself.
Just a little bit. Yes, survivor. I was lucky enough to be diagnosed in October.
And that was about 6 years ago.
6 years ago. And I felt lucky because so many morning shows and sometimes even sitcoms or dramas will focus in the month of October on different stories or storylines that have to do with breast cancer. And that kind of helped me in the very beginning get used to it. But I always wanted sort of a to-do list or a don't you dare do this list. So I thought maybe we can go through a few things.
Give us your don't you dares.
My big don't you dare? I did this. When I first found out and didn't have a full diagnosis, so it was still the how bad is it and can we do something about it, which is in the very beginning, it is that way. I got a little dramatic. I got a little dramatic. Because, you know, October is bulb planting month. And I love to plant the bulbs because in the spring, the tulips come out. Well, let me just tell you. I was afraid to plant the bulbs because I didn't want my family to see the flowers coming out in March if I wasn't going to be here.
Kelley!
It was a real deal. It's what you think about cancer is very, very scary. And I've heard it's a little dangerous. There's a thin line. There's just a thin line between getting totally dramatic and going all the way into the rabbit hole that cancer can be and trying to keep your head above water. And I just went right into that rabbit hole.
But obviously, you did a great job using your sense of humor to make it through and navigate through some of those really tough moments.
Yes, but we did not have flowers in the spring because of that. What I found out was there are more good stories than bad. People just don't walk around telling you they're good stories.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to do a whole 90-minute drama on everything was great. They're just not, right?
Tell us one of your good stories.
Well, most of it is around sense of humor.
Yeah.
So I had to have a pretty radical bilateral mastectomy. And chemo, lost the hair. That was absolutely delightful.
Yeah, but it's grown back.
It's grown back, and praise the Lord, grew back just the way it was. And everybody tried to tell me, it's not going to. There's always those people, there's the other. Do not listen. Do not listen to these people. Those are the same people who, when you got married, told you, well, you know, my cake fell at my wedding, so you better be careful about your cake falling at your wedding. My preacher didn't show up to marry us. It was horrible. You don't want to hear people's bad stories, right? You just don't.
Yeah.
But, and a lot of people told me, your hair's not going to grow back the way it was. It's probably going to be just the opposite. Well, it wasn't, okay? So it didn't always happen that way. But I would say you have to have tubes. And I had 4 of them. And it's pretty gross. And because I had no mobility, I couldn't take care of those. So my husband had to. And we got real just close and personal with it, for better, for worse. Real close and personal with that. But he's sitting there helping me drain the tubes, which is delightful is really the only word I can think of. And I just started giggling. And he's like, what were you laughing about? And I said, I feel like, because really, when you have those, you keep them clean, you can have them come out really, really early, and you don't have to go for weeks and weeks and weeks with these things, right? So I was actually on schedule. It looked like I was going to get mine out, you know, really early. So I told him, you know, I kind of feel like, you know, the Civil War soldier who just finished the Battle of Gettysburg, but now here I go off to Shiloh. You know, and he was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, this battle is out of the way, and I'm going, woohoo, but, you know, Shiloh's coming up, because after that it was chemo and radiation.
Yeah, well, you've got to
things.
Anticipate and prepare for the next part of your trip.
So there was a little bit of that, and he would just laugh and go, I don't know how you're getting Civil War battles out of your cancer journey, but whatever it takes. The humor is really what got me through. I always tell everybody, you're all different. For every person who has a cancer diagnosis, there's a different journey. So be really, really careful not to glom onto someone's journey and think that yours has to be exactly like theirs, or if it's not exactly like theirs, that's bad or good for you. It's just, that's not how it works. And one thing I love about cancer research right now is that it really has changed so much from, say, when we were little and our grandmothers were going through these things.
Right.
It is amazing what they are able to do and how they are able to anticipate the types of treatment.
Well, it seems like the survivorship is so much greater now. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, you're not wrong in that, but what I will tell you is, as soon as I started to tell people, and I wasn't really comfortable at first telling people that I had cancer, but once I started telling people, these women just started coming out of the woodwork telling me, oh, well, I had it. I had a lumpectomy. Don't you worry, you're going to be fine. Or I had a double mastectomy 10 years ago, and look at me now. I had one woman, loved her. She was probably in her late 60s, early 70s, was a former physician. And she comes up to me and says, oh, I had it 25 years ago. She had gone through the whole thing, doing fantastic. And I was really, really inspired by these women who, you're walking by every single day and you have no idea what their stories are.
Right. They're just living their lives without that hanging over their head, and it doesn't define who they are.
Exactly. But I will say I am a little more vocal about having had it now, just because I know there are some people out there that were like me who were looking for those people to look at as sort of a North Star, you know?
Right.
And so I am a little bit more vocal. You don't want people to think you're trying to get attention for it, but oh my gosh. Don't you dare get worried about losing your hair. I did.
Oh, I remember that.
I was devastated by that.
You got one of those cap things?
I did the cold caps trying to save the hair. It didn't really work that much for me. It was okay, but for a while I looked a little bit like the Crypt Keeper. And then it kind of progressed, and then I looked a little bit like, I just had hair coming out of weird places, and I refused to shave. I couldn't do the whole Samantha on Sex and the City where she just shaved. No, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. So I let the little sprigs lay where they may, and I looked really like the Crypt Keeper. It was pretty bad. And then after a while, when it started growing back, I looked like a chia pet because it was so curly, and it looked like little ramen noodles around my head. And as it grew out a little bit and I was able to straighten it, I looked a lot like Elastigirl. It was really just kind of like, and I kind of enjoyed my Elastigirl look for a little bit, but I realized
you wore wigs.
I wore wigs. I did, but there's a part of me now looking back that wished I had not put so much energy into that, because you do try to control the things that you think you can control, and what I really realized was nobody really cared. Nobody cared. Nobody cared how I looked then. They don't care how I look now.
But they care about you and how you're getting along.
But they didn't care about whether I had hair. Yeah, they could have cared less. And I wish I had let that go and concentrated on other things. Yeah. So that is don't get worked up about that, because it does grow back. And it grows back pretty quickly, and it ain't nothing but a thing. It ain't nothing but a thing. Don't stay holed up in your house while you're going through this. There was a little bit of time when I was getting used to the fact that I was losing my hair, that I didn't want to go out. And I think my biggest concern at that point wasn't that I was losing the hair, but that I was going to look sick. Because when you start to lose your hair, you start to look like you're sicker than you may really be feeling.
And you were losing a lot of weight at that time.
Yeah, I had lost a lot of weight. I got over that. I gained that and a lot more back, but you try so hard to be normal and you really can't. And another thing that you probably shouldn't worry about is trying to make everybody else feel better about what's going on with you, instead of acknowledging, I guess. I was too busy going around telling everybody, I'm great.
Yeah.
I've got lots of energy. Yeah. Everything's wonderful.
Yeah. I'll never forget, we went, and looking back on it now, I'm thinking, you were crazy.
Crazy in the head.
It was, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 weeks after your mastectomy.
Yeah.
Most people aren't out of the bed yet. And we had tickets to some show downtown with our husbands and some friends. And Kelley's like, yeah, of course I'm going. I'm going. So she just went, and we went out to dinner, and we went to this long show, and she sat there and never complained, never said a word. I thought, she's well. She's over it.
Well,
this is going to be an easy thing.
that's what you want to do sometimes. You want to just be normal, and you don't want anybody to think that you're sick. Just be careful, because you do have some healing to do, and there a lot of this is emotional as well as physical, and you need to take that time. So that is another don't do.
Were you sitting there in pain the whole time?
I think I was just so focused in the adrenaline of being out and trying to just be normal. You know, that it kind of took over, but you know, don't expect
Trust
that
your
much.
friends enough to know that they're going to not care. You can not always put on that brave front
Yeah,
in front of your friends.
yeah, that's true.
We will hold you up.
Yes. My biggest message is you too can get through this. And I wish you the best if you are going through it right now. And I want you to know there is an end to this. Just hang in there and keep your sense of humor, and know that there are many of us that have gone before you. If you do have a chance to donate to breast cancer research, I hope you take the opportunity, because they are using that money well. If you want to volunteer or help instead of donate, there are a lot of organizations who will offer people rides to chemotherapy,
Oh,
rides
good,
to
good.
radiation. I rode on an elevator with a young girl who was going through what I was going through, and she was young. She was in her 20s, and she was kind of on her own. And I'll never forget that, because you wonder who's making sure she gets there. Is she having to take herself
Who's
there?
draining her bulbs?
Yes, you know, and a lot of people are doing this on their own. And if you have friends who don't have a caregiver, who are going through this, they might just need some help. And a ride to the doctor or a ride to radiation, which radiation has to happen every single day. Mine was 5 weeks. Every single day at the same time, every day. It has to be that rigid. And it doesn't last very long. It's like a 15-minute thing. And you have to go, park, walk in, do it, get out every single day. If you could have a ride to something like that would be amazing.
That would be huge.
So, you know, it's nice to get the meals. It's lovely to get cards, flowers, all those things. But if those friends of yours do not have caregivers, that would be a lovely thing to do. And you can also volunteer to do it for people you don't know at different hospitals and through breast cancer organizations.
Yes, and for other ideas about how to help people who have a serious diagnosis or are going through a serious illness, watch the show that we did on how to help someone with a serious diagnosis. We'll link it below.
Absolutely.